The masked man suspected of abducting the 84-year-old grandmother appeared at her front door sometime before the night she was taken. Among the images released by the FBI earlier this month was this one, showing the suspect without a backpack.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Sources now tell ABC News that image was captured on Guthrie's Nest camera on a date prior to February 1st, when she was abducted.
Very curious indeed, especially on day 24. According to ABC News, the masked man who is suspected of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie appears to have been at her front door earlier than February 1st, the night police believe that she was kidnapped. Sources familiar with the investigation told ABC News. Okay, but do they know when exactly? According to ABC News, the image the FBI released of the suspect at her front door is without a backpack that was captured by a Nest doorbell camera on a day before the suspected abduction. Now, what's quite important here is that it's an image, not video. That's the first thing to point out. And the second thing is he's quite a distance from the camera, which suggests that that was the closest he got to the camera. That's the best footage of him that they got before he turned around and went away. And it does seem as though he chickened out, that he approached the door and perhaps saw the camera and was in two minds about whatever he wanted to do, perhaps changed his mind at that moment about what he intended. Now, I think what's really interesting here is this question, do they not know when this happened? And we do know that Google have been working to extract the data, but of course, as soon as you go further and further back in time, a lot of the metadata becomes harder to access. And so it could be that they literally don't know when this footage was taken. And that may be why the authorities have asked neighbors to check their footage. And one wonders how that has been going, whether the neighbors have been cooperative, whether the neighbors have subscriptions, whether the neighbors have been able to provide the police with any clues.
Showing up.
One theory, the sources say, is the suspect approached the door the first time, noticed the camera, and was scared off, only to return later when he is seen with a flashlight in his mouth, tampering with the camera, and covering the lens with branches.
Well, we certainly came prepared the second time with those pieces of flowers to cover up the camera. To me, that suggests that he may have been gone maybe just a couple of moments. But if you think about it, it's actually crazy that the suspect seems to have known about the camera, and yet when he returns, when he approaches the house a second time, he still didn't seem to have a plan. What's also interesting, as I mentioned a moment ago, is that he seems to not only not have had a plan, but when he first approached, he doesn't seem to have activated the light of the camera in the new image, unless the quality is just very poor. And then according to ABC News, one theory is that the suspect approached the door the first time, noticed the camera and was scared off, only to return later when he is seen tampering with the device and putting branches in front of the lens. Now, the whole question really is how much later? Was it that same night or another night? And I must say, intuitively, to me, it seems like it is that same night. Also, is he wearing the same trousers and footwear in the new footage? I must say, from a cursory glance, it does seem as though he is. There seem to be slight black markings on his shoes that we see in the grainy footage. Are we able to make that out in the clearer video footage as well? ABC News also confirms what I've been saying for a while. These images from the home security camera are the most important pieces of evidence in the investigation. Now, what can we infer from this additional footage?
Is not clear, but it does suggest at least the possibility that Nancy Guthrie's abduction may have been planned in advance.
You think? Now, Jason Pack, a former FBI agent, told ABC News that if it is the same person, it could indicate that the person there was surveilling the place before the abduction happened. It could, but if the footage is from a few minutes or even hours earlier, there may not have been much surveilling taking place. I don't really think, I wouldn't say there's no planning going on here, but I also wouldn't say there was much forethought that went into this. It could also be that when the suspect visited the residence, Nancy wasn't there. And since it was a weekend, perhaps he didn't think she would return that same night. According to ABC, the fact that there was preparation and planning makes it more of a sophisticated type of criminal activity than someone just showing up. Well, I think that is taking it a bit far. There's preparation, in that he prepared a wardrobe for the night's activity. He packed a bag, but almost zero plan for how to deal with the camera. But something that has come up on day 24, something that we have perhaps missed, is this. Listen to this.
For the abduction, the sheriff has said he believes Nancy Guthrie was the victim of a targeted kidnapping. He provided no evidence, but just a few months ago, she did appear on the Today Show from Tucson with her daughter Savannah, talking about why she stayed there all these years.
Just the air, the quality of life is laid back and gentle.
Over the weekend,
Now that footage may actually be what triggered this perpetrator. That might be what made someone aware that Nancy is who she is. So in other words, someone may have seen that on television and said, hey, I know who that lady is, and I didn't realize that that's her daughter, and may have made certain calculations in his mind that may have been to do with money. And I do think it's very interesting. This crime happened at the end of the month, when rent is due, when bills need to be paid. But what is also interesting is that this footage seems to show in a fairly short lead up to when the events took place that someone may have been alerted to Nancy and Nancy's relationship with Savannah, and that may actually tie into a different motive completely, a motive of political grievance, and that is something I do want to talk about in more detail. And so in the next episode, I do want to explore the idea of a grievance motive in more detail. And I think you're going to find the way that I do that quite interesting and compelling. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that, but I will be doing another video later today on Nick Reiner. We're seeing him for the very first time, new footage of him in court. First time we're seeing him in about 2 months. And so there's quite a lot to say about him. And I'll also be doing a deeper dive into his psychology, but more about that in the next episode. So look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.